You know, so many Canadians are concerned about their safety, especially in rural areas. A number of farmers and ranchers on the prairies are concerned about police arriving on time when a trespasser threatens their families or properties. Is there really enough resources to protect those in our rural communities? Joining us today to talk about that and give us some of the insights on the issue of rural crime in Alberta is Cor DeWitt from Alberta Rural Crime Watch, Rural Crime Prevention, joining us from Leduc, Alberta, just outside of Edmonton. Cor, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you.
So, Cor, how did the Alberta Rural Crime Watch and Rural Crime Prevention Initiative come to be?
Well, it started way back in 1978 is when a few people got together and started to get concerned about crime rates in their area. And they started out as a range patrol, actually, but later on in the years to come, they decided that they were not fulfilling their total mandate. So in 1995, they changed it to Alberta Rural Crime Watch, which is more of an inclusive name that covers everyone.
Now, the program was initially called the Alberta Range Patrol. What happened with this type of patrol?
Well, range patrol was primarily looking after cattle and that sort of thing, and trying to find people that were rustling cattle, and the old Western idea. And it wasn't really concerned about break and enters and car thefts and all that sort of thing that we have today.
So this sounds like it was kind of a partnership between the police and the citizens of rural Alberta. What are some of the biggest needs of residents in rural communities, especially when it comes to public safety? What are you hearing, Cor?
Well, the biggest thing that they're looking at right now is a timeline of between RCMP getting out to the rural area where the incident has taken place, and the rates. The rate of crime increases in some communities. And it's kind of funny when you look at it this way. You see an increase in break and enters from 5 to 10 a month, and suddenly there's a 50% increase. And it's not really a 50% increase, it's just a little bit of a rush on break and enters. And the next month it'll go down and they say, okay, it's a decrease. We've done our job. Well, we haven't really done our job. It's just gone down naturally. So the statistics are kind of funny to analyze.
Do you feel perhaps that there may be a smaller police presence in rural Alberta and across the prairies?
I don't know if there's a smaller presence at all. I think it's just a matter of where they are needed at the time. If there's a rush in a certain area of Alberta, a certain district or county, then there may be some resources spread out into that area to help combat the problem. And then another area feels that they're being shortened out because it maybe the criminal has moved into another area. There's not as many police officers running around, and that'll sort of skews the results of the statistics, right? It's all stats nowadays. That's what they follow in order to find out whether they're doing a good job or bad job, or where resources need to be placed. I mean, I'm not a police officer. I don't get involved in the placement of police officers, but I can see it where they have an area that is very very rural, very sparsely populated. They cannot have 20 officers driving around the county all the time checking on everything. But when something happens in one end, two or three officers head out there, or the other end of the county is not being taken care of.
It must be a real challenge for a lot of RCMP as well that head out to rural communities. Range Road 22, by the hay bale, by this rock, or by Range Road 485. And you really have to know your region, don't you, to be able to arrive in time to be able to help families who may be threatened.
Exactly, and it's there's some very rural areas in Alberta, very sparsely populated, where you don't see a farmhouse for 5 or 10 kilometers. I was going to say miles, but we're in kilometers now. It's 5 or 10 miles is a long space between residents, and you don't have the neighborhood uh, taking care of each other in that sort of sense because they're not right across the road from each other. They're not able to keep an eye on their place, on their neighbor's place, like we have around Leduc where I live, where it's very densely populated. There's houses on every quarter section of land here, so people can watch out for each other pretty quickly. Whereas in a very sparsely populated area where there's like 5, 10 kilometers between houses, you can't really keep an eye on your neighbor.
Let's talk about some of the feedback you've received from rural residents and some of their biggest concerns when it comes to crime on their farms and ranches.
Well, the biggest concern I think right now that we're starting to see is the court system issues of releasing the criminal or the suspect when they're arrested by RCMP, brought before the court releases them on bail and so on. They go back out in the street again. Catch and release is a phrase that's used a lot out here.
Would you say the scope of crimes have really changed here in Alberta?
I don't think they've changed. I think they've gotten a little bit more sophisticated because they're starting to take catalytic converters, stuff like that, off of vehicles that they can turn into money for their drug issues that they have or whatever. I mean, years ago there was no catalytic converters on vehicles, so they didn't take that. Now there is, so they start to steal that kind of thing. Equipment is getting more and more expensive. So there's more and more items on there that they can take out of the equipment and trucks and combines and so on. So there's the targets are similar in scope, but they're just trying to get stuff that's more valuable.
When you're talking to a lot of farmers and ranchers core who may be gun owners, law-abiding gun owners, and they say, we want to protect our properties, we want to protect our families, and we don't appreciate the government trying to take our guns away. When you have those conversations with a lot of people in rural communities, what are your thoughts?
I have not had a conversation about gun control or gun access with farmers in our area at all. They have no concerns at all. They they know that you can't be vigilante, and if everyone is carrying a gun, they're going to be in trouble. That's my personal view. We're going to have issues with people pulling guns on innocent neighbors coming by to check because they've hit the ditch, they need a pull or they need some help, and you're going to have problems with that. And I feel strongly we don't need guns.
So tell us a little bit more about the mandate of your organization and how it may have changed over the years.
Well, the mandate of our organization is to bring the grassroots um, chapters together as a provincial voice with the provincial government to canvas for crime prevention programs and such things that can help reduce crime. We've really wholly adopted the CEPTED program, the Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, which sounds like a very ominous title, but it just means give you access to your neighbors to see your house, to see your farm buildings. Don't cover it all up in trees and everything and make it nice and hidden and nice and private because then the criminal can go in there and do his thing and the neighbor will never even know that he's threatening your vehicle, taking your tools out of your shop or anything else that he's interested in. And that's what we try to do, try to give access to the neighbors to see what's happening at your house or at your farm. And this also comes in play in businesses as well when they have a storefront that is covered with advertising, and that's great for advertising for the business, but it doesn't tell the neighbors that there's a robbery going on because they can't see it. Whereas if they had open windows, clear windows, you could see that there's a robbery taking place at a convenience store. It can be reported right away, rather than find out later on that the doors were locked and nobody could get in and nobody could see inside. They didn't know what was going on.
So, Core, do you think your group's voice is really being heard by different levels of government?
I believe we are. We have a very active website. Well, I can give it right now. It's www.ruralcrimewatch.ab.ca, which is a massive website that has grown in the last 3 or 4 years by an excellent webmaster that we have. Has volunteered his time, and the website is garnered comments from right across Canada as far as the uh, information that's on there. I think we have about 12 or 13 videos on there on CEPTED principles, on storing firearms, to protecting your property, to and enclosing your yard, make sure it's safe, gates, use of gates, pros and cons. I mean, CEPTED is not a perfect uh, program, but it's a lot better than nothing at all.
There's been a lot of talk from the UCP about bringing in a provincial police force. What are your thoughts in that regard? Would it be better than the RCMP?
Well, we worked with the RCMP for 25 years. We've had very few issues with them. We have a good program, a memorandum of understanding between the RCMP and ourselves, and it's worked very well. But we also deal with, like, my group, my personal group that I deal with the Edmonton City police officers. Calgary City police officers are dealing with different groups. Lethbridge, all over the place. So we will work with whatever police force we're given. So I'm saying that it doesn't really make that it doesn't make that much difference to us which group we're going to have to deal with. We have to deal with somebody. So whatever police authorities out there, we will work with.
Cor, let's chat a little bit more about the passive and active patrols that assist RCMP in rural areas. Can you talk about that?
Well, rural crime watch does passive patrols. Sorry, passive patrols because we travel to our locations like our farmyards and our different pastures and fields where we're having our crops. We will take a different route to the different fields. So as you go one way, you make a left turn out of your driveway, and next time you make a right turn, and you kind of look out for suspicious vehicles, suspicious persons. Most people know their neighbors' vehicles, so you can pretty well tell if a vehicle is kind of from the neighborhood or if it's kind of different. If it's different, you kind of take the license number down, or with cameras now on these cell phones, snap a picture. You got it. I mean, my trucks, I have dash cams, so I keep an eye on what the dash cam's picking up. And then I will report it to the RCMP and say, okay, this vehicle I've spotted twice in two different locations sitting in a driveway. What's it doing there? So they'll do a cursory check and say, okay, we've had this black Ford half ton. It's suspiciously reported by three people, and we've had two unsolved break and enters. Maybe there's a connection, and that's when it comes back to a resolve.
So, Cor, you chit-chatted a bit about the relationship you have with the RCMP. Can you tell us about other groups your organization continues to work with?
Well, we continue to work with Citizens on Patrol, where they do an active patrol, where they actually have assigned patrols where they go out on and to the left side of the town or the right side or the middle of town or but they have issues with getting volunteers to do small towns and small areas because it's a fairly large commitment on time. And that's one thing that's very difficult with any group that's organizing now to crime prevention or crime reduction is getting the volunteers to step forward and commit one weekend a month to patrolling. That takes quite a bit to get them to do that.
You know, technology's changed a lot over the years, Cor, when it comes to helping nonprofits, different industries, and as well fighting crime, and especially in rural areas. Let's talk a bit about the crime app that your organization uses. People can tap in on their phones.
Yes, we developed a phone app a couple years ago, and I've improved it slightly in the last couple years. And what it does is if you touch your app on your Apple phone or your Android phone, it will bring up your geographical area, your GPS area. It'll give you the closest RCMP detachment, the phone number for that detachment. So you can touch the phone number, it'll dial the phone for you, and you can talk to the detachment and report a crime that's taken place in your viewing area. And it really comes in handy when there's an accident on a country road somewhere and you're driving in an area that you're not sure whose detachment has taken jurisdiction. And you can say, okay, there's an accident. You can report it right away. I mean, you can call 911 as well, but it'll also give you some information as to what to do. There's some tips on there on prevention and statistics and so on. It's all in that app, and it's free for anyone who wishes to download it. It's at the Apple Store and at the Android Store as well, and on the website.
So if viewers are interested in contacting you and getting involved with your organization, especially if they want to volunteer, how should they go about doing that?
They go through our website at www.ruralcrimewatch.ab.ca. There's some information there on the navigation tab. You don't have to be a member to get that information, and you can go into it and look at how to set up your own rural crime watch area because there are some areas of Alberta that are not covered by a rural crime watch group. So you can go in there and it'll give you some ideas on how to start one and where to go and what registration to take place. You have to have a society's registration from Alberta Registries as well. That's a requirement. And so it's you can't just say I want to be a member and go ahead and jump in there. You have to follow some steps and get your community involved. That's number one.
And perhaps a criminal check when you're vetting different candidates?
Yes, we some groups we have criminal record checks for every member that they allow into their group. I know the provincial board, everyone is criminal record checked every 3 years, and every member of their local board of directors is also criminal checked every 3 years as a part of our memorandum of understanding with the RCMP.
Cord DeWitt is with Alberta Rural Crime Watch, Rural Crime Prevention. Thanks so much for joining us today from Leduc, Alberta.
You're welcome, Hal. Thank you very much.